These are my single favourite books from 11 separate genres because I am a bit of an eclectic reader, don't you know? To assist us in today's video, we're going to use the personal computer because I cannot be bothered to argue with people in the comments about what is or isn't a genre or sub-genre. Now, there is one specific category in this video, which is category numero 11, that I think a lot of people are going to disagree with, and that is Romantasy. The reason I've included Romantasy as its own genre is because I think it's just brought so many new readers into the community that I think for this video at least, it deserves its own mention. And if you don't like that, well, just deal with it because it's my choice, my video. So, like Jojo said, if you're not happy, get out, leave right now. We will be covering literary fiction, historical fiction, crime, thriller. I can't put that finger up without moving my little finger, so you deal with that and all. Horror, fantasy, sci-fi, romance, adventure. We're back to this stupid finger thing. Westerns and Romantasy. So that's 11, and that's because Google told me. So if you're not happy with that, I said, get on Google and complain. Usually at this point, before we get into the main video, I'd encourage you to get your daily caffeine fix. I'd hold my mug up, but I am a mug because I've run out of milk and I can't be bothered to brush my teeth and put any socks on yet to go to the shop. So we're going to do this video, then I'm going to reward myself with some milk for said coffee. I am, however, high on life today, so I don't feel like I need the caffeine fix. So buckle up, Broncos. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed to the page, please do. Starting off with category numero un, and that is literary fiction. You're going to have to deal with this. I've moved the camera because I didn't want to have to be trying to look at the computer and look at you and be like, it's what I'm trying to do a video. It gets quite frustrating and can just throw you off a little bit. Deal with the mess behind there as well. That's some clean washing I need to put away. You're not going to get aesthetic looks on this page. I keep telling you, I'm a bit of a messy bastard. Literary fiction is one of them genres that I always struggle to put books into. I think it often can get quite confusing where a book that's classed as literary fiction could quite easily class as historical fiction. So we're just going to go on to Google. Google's going to tell us what is or isn't literary fiction, and you're just going to deal with whichever one is my favourite. Literary fiction books, because you can't argue with Google. That doesn't spell books, but Google's clever enough to autocorrect for me. Cheers, Google. Right, where do we go? Let's go to Goodreads, because Goodreads is our friend. Where are you? Right at the top. I've not had my caffeine yet. I am slow. Don't recognise any of these books, I'll be honest with you, or the authors. Literary fiction is a genre that I've not read much of, so we might struggle with this. Christine Hanna. I've read Christine Hanna's work before. I would have thought she would have verged more towards historical fiction, but if I can count that, then that's a possibility. A Little Life, I think I saw that. I've not actually read A Little Life. It's there, Little Life. I've not read that. I don't think I'll ever be mentally well enough to read A Little Life. I think that's just asking for me to get into a depressive state. I know that it's meant to be a fabulous book and stuff, but everyone that's read it and told me it's good has said that you need to be in a really good mental headspace to read it, and I don't think I'm ever in a fully positive mental headspace, so that's probably going to be a book that I will always regret not reading. Frederick Backman, I saw him as well. I think this might be an easy one for literary fiction because I already know that there's not many literary fiction books that I've read, but I also know that I've read A Man Named Uwe, or A Man Called Uwe. I don't know which one it is. It is called A Man, it should tell me on here, Called Uwe, named Called. We're not going to argue in today's video, are we? And if you are, bugger off. This book's spectacular. I read this last summer, and the reason I think it sticks with me so much is because after I'd read this book, we went away to Nerca in Spain last October, and whilst in Espanol, me and my brother-in-law were reading Dungeon Crawler Call for the first time, and we'd sit on the veranda reading Dungeon Crawler Call, geeking out about it, and then we went inside because it started chucking it down with rain, which you don't really pay for when you go abroad, so I think that's a bit unfair. I should have got a refund. And we watched A Man Named Otto, or A Man Called Otto, which is the Tom Hanks adaptation to this film. The way we ugly cried was just sickening. Snot coming down my nose, and it reminded me how much I truly loved this book. This book has just got such a way of showing you the importance of community, of being open-minded to different cultures and different people, and just what friendship can do to a person, and finding friendship. It reminds you that elderly people really, really do struggle with loneliness. That's one of the leading causes of mental health problems in elderly, is the fact that they often don't see people, which can then lead them to become a bit miserable, which snowball effect. People don't want to approach them because they come across as miserable. Sometimes these elderly people just need a hug. And this book was just exactly that. This was just a dude that needed a hug, and it was just fantastic. There's some themes in here that aren't necessarily easy to read, but there are also some really heartwarming moments in this book, and I bloody loved it. I think I cried so much at the film because of how fantastic the book was. So when it comes to literary fiction, I think this is going to have to be the best book that I've personally ever read. Up next, we've got historical fiction, which should be a relatively easy one, considering I've already seen Christine Hanna and know that I absolutely adored The Women and Nightingale by Christine Hanna. Them books are absolutely spectacular. But to be on the safe side, we are going to have a quick Google box and just see if there's any other books that come into this genre that I loved even more than them, because better to be safe than sorry. Memoirs of a Geisha comes in at number 1. My mum actually recommended that book to me years ago, and I've still not got around to reading it. Pillars of the Earth, I am told, if you like historical fiction, that is almost like a pillar within the genre, something that you need to read. I've just smacked my computer. I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do it to you. I've just not got around to it. I believe that's a story about a group of people who are like building a church or something. I might be completely way off. The Book Thief, I read that. I thought that was absolutely spectacular. Really interesting concept how that story is told. It seems like I've actually read a fair bit of historical fiction, which doesn't surprise me because I really love historical non-fiction as well. So far, I think I'm still leaning towards a Christine Hanna book because they are just spectacular. Shadow of the Wind, I know that's a lot of people's favourites. I personally got a little bit bored when I was reading that, which is a shame because I like mysteries as well, and it had a bit of a mystery element to it. Lonesome Dove, I thought that was Western. That's on my TBR. I thought I saw, maybe not on this page, but I thought I saw The Tattooist of Auschwitz. But I was under the impression that that was non-fiction based on a true story, so I might be wrong with that. But looking at all these, Roots by Alex Haley, that's a fantastic book about a slave called Kunta Kinte and the story of the slave trade. Really dark read, really, really gripping. The Kite Runner, historical fiction, yeah, I suppose it is. I haven't read The Kite Runner yet, or A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. There are two other books that I really, really want to read. I'm probably going to have to go with Nightingale, I think, by Christine Hanna, because that book just absolutely slapped. I have only read Nightingale and the Women by Christine Hanna, but I lent my mum The Great Alone. She said that book's absolutely brilliant as well. I think Christine Hanna is just an absolute artist when it comes to historical fiction books, and The Nightingale is just the one that stayed with me the most. And if anyone came to me and said, what historical fiction book would you recommend? That would be it. I think it's absolutely stinkingly good, and if you've not tried it already, you bloody should. The third genre that we're doing is crime books, and I think this one feels like probably one of the easiest out of the bunch, because crime books are really where I started my reading journey, other than when I was younger, things like Harry Potter and stuff. But when I really started reading as an adult, when I was like 18, 19 years old, I'd go away on holiday and I'd read James Patterson books mainly. And then as my crime exploration continued, I found Chris Carter. Now, this man, the way that he writes crime books is like nothing I've ever personally come across. But we're going to again have a quick Google and just see if there are any others that I've just completely forgot about. And then there were none by Agatha Christie. That's on my shelf. I've not read any Agatha Christie works yet. I know that's criminal for someone that says he likes crime, but there's just only so much time in a day, and you can only read so many books, can't you? I don't even know why I'm looking. Angels and Demons, I've not read that. They are sat over there somewhere behind all clean washing. Gone Girl. Lovely Bones. Lovely Bones was spectacular. Now, that's thrown a spanner in the works. It's not going to be my number one, but Lovely Bones, if you've not read it, is so harrowing, but such a good story as well, that I recommend everyone reads it. If you've seen the film, the book is better, as usually is the case, but I think that's one of the stories where I feel like the film did some justice, apart from the ending. The ending needs to, unalive itself. But when it comes to the actual film itself, I think what it did before the ending were brilliant. Lovely Bones is not going to go to number one, but I'm just going to have to say An Evil Mind by Chris Carter is my favourite crime book of all time. The Chris Carter books follow a detective called Robert Hunter, who is part of the ultra-violent crimes unit in the LAPD. Like a department within the LAPD, but they only deal with the most horrific, minging, disgusting, vile crimes and people in humanity. So just imagine like the most vile crime scene ever. People have been sent to Jesus in the worst way. Robert Hunter and Carlos Garcia are dealing with them crimes. They are really, really minging. If you are into crime books where the crime scene is like really bloody, think Dexter, but on steroids, then you're going to love these books. The chapters are crazy short, like immensely short. Some of them are literally a page. Most chapters end on almost like a twist. Not necessarily a twist, but just something that makes you need to read more and more and more. The reason I'm going to choose Evil Mind is because this is the first time in this series where Robert comes up against almost like his nemesis, like the epitome of evil person. And it's also the one that digs a little bit into Robert Hunter, who is the main protagonist's past, which I really, really enjoyed. So I would say An Evil Mind is definitely going to have to be my favourite crime book that I've ever read. But I will give honourable mentions to most James Patterson books. I think they're equally binge-worthy. And M.W. Craven is also a brilliant crime writer. And I would say as well that M.W. Craven has probably got one of the best duos within at least modern crime in Washington Poe and Tilly Bradshaw. They are spectacular. But we've got to pick a favourite. And today it's going to be An Evil Mind by Chris Carter. Next up we have thriller books. And I know some people might say thriller and crime, maybe they're both under mystery. I don't care. Google told me so. As I've said, if you've got any issues with this video, pick it up with Google, not with me. So thriller books. Now, in my mind, when I think thriller books, I think plot twists. I think fast-paced, engaging, something that just I don't want to put down. There are books that I've read that are breathtakingly spectacular. What I want to do with this video is tell you my favourites. Not necessarily the best, but books that have just delivered exactly what I expect. And the one thriller book for me that comes to mind when I think of plot twist that just absolutely shooketh me to my core was Silent Patient by Alex... I don't know how to pronounce his surname, so we'll type it in and I'll let you have a go. It's this fella here. The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I've probably butchered his name, but who cares? The dude wrote a good book, and I know that this book gets mixed reviews. Although 4.17 on Goodreads is a stonking score, I think that's fantastic. I've seen some people say that they really dislike this book. I don't care what them people said, because I don't read for their joy, I read for my own joy. All I can tell you is when I got to the end of this book, the plot twist, the reveal was like, it was just mental. It truly was like Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone all over again when Quirrell takes off his scarf off his head, and I was just like, shut the front door, no. And then after the reveal, if you rewind and watch it all again, you're like, how stupid am I? Like, that were there all the time. Like, I should have seen that. I like to think of myself as like Agent Gideon of plot twists. Not much get past me. I tend to guess most twists. That just weren't me in this book. I read all the way through it, got to the end, and I was just like, boom, book thrown against the wall. Shut up. Shut up. And I don't think any book has made me so angry at not guessing a plot twist as this book. So for that reason, this would have to go to number one. Is it the best thriller book I've ever read? No, absolutely not. There are better thriller books with better plots and better characters. But when it comes to the twist alone, that absolutely sticks with me. I do have to give an honourable mention again to The Power of the Dog by Don Winslow, I think his name was. That is a spectacular thriller book. If you're into like Mexican cartels and DEA agents and things like that, it's quite gritty and dark, but that was really fast paced and that just gripped me from start to finish. But again, we're picking a favourite today, and the favourite in this category is The Silent Patient by Alex Michael. Next up will absolutely be the easiest of all of the genres, because I think I've only read one horror book in my entire life. And it's not because I dislike horror, it's because for me, growing up, I used to watch loads of horror films. Really enjoyed them, like A House of a Thousand Corpses, Hills Have Eyes, just the gorier the better. I wasn't necessarily that bothered about jumpy films, but I loved gory horror because I'm a bit of a crazy bitch. But horror books don't give me that, ooh, you bastard. Like, I want to jump and I want to be scared. So I stayed away from horror for years and years and years, until very recently when I started on a Stephen King journey. And I think when you try reading Stephen King, you're forced into the horror genre. So I'm going to have a quick nebby and see if there's any on here that we have read. But I do know that there's a very good chance that my favourite horror book of all time is going to be Pet Sematary by Esteban King. One Dark Window, I'm not sure I would put that into horror. I would probably class that as like gothic fantasy / romantasy. But who am I? I told you we're not arguing with Google today. Goodreads says that One Dark Window is horror. We're not going to argue with it. One Dark Window is not horror. Don't tell Google I said it though. Yeah, look, I'm not going to waste your time. I haven't read much horror. Pet Sematary was absolutely spectacular and made me realise that I do actually like horror, and I wanted to dive more into it. That book was eerie, it was dark, it was spooky, it was un-Stephen King-like for me. I find Stephen King to be a bit of a waffler. Sometimes he goes on and on and on and says in 10 pages what he could have said in 1 page. I didn't feel like there were many wasted words in Pet Sematary, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would be interested to see what sort of review Pet Sematary gets on Goodreads. Although Stephen King has got a bit of a fandom, so I would imagine, yeah, a lot of his books would be highly rated. 4.01. I think that's a fair score. I think I rated it 4-star. So yeah, my favourite ever horror book is Pet Sematary. If you've got any like stinkingly good horror recommendations, then tell me. Oh, I have read another horror book. It's called Hell House by Richard Matheson. I thought that was weird. It was like an orgy with ghosts, and I didn't enjoy it. But I really like Pet Sematary. That was class. So, horror, winner, Pet Sematary. Go on, Stephen. This is where I think we're going to struggle the most. Fantasy books. I bloody love all books, but fantasy, at least this year, has been my go-to genre. It's the one genre that I just can't seem to stop reading. I just feel like it's such a varied genre. There are just so many different subgenres within fantasy, so you can always kind of find something that tickles your pickle, I suppose. But there's also so many fantasy books that I have absolutely adored, like Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, A Sword of Khagan by M.L. Wang. There are just so many books that I have truly cherished from start to finish and just haven't got bored. There's just one that sticks with me, which is a book that I just truly love, and that's The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. I'm a sucker for a happy ending, and I get a bit angry if you take away my favourite characters, and I understand that some authors will do it intentionally for shock value and just to piss me off. I don't necessarily like it. I'm not going to say that takes away from some of my favourite books, because in some of my favourite fantasy books I lose some of my favourite characters. It just upsets me a bit, and I like to be happy. I did a Google search recently, and crying and laughter burn the same amount of calories off. I cry enough, and I just feel like I'd rather burn happy calories than sad calories. And The Lies of Locke Lamora just does that. Don't get me wrong, you're not going to get everything you want. There's going to be some tension. There's going to be some times where Locke is in uncompromising situations. But there's also just bare banter in that book. Locke and Jean's relationship just makes you happy. It makes you smile. There's some one-liners in that book that just make you belly chuckle. It truly is such a magnificent piece of fantasy literature. I think one of the reasons a lot of people don't put it in their fantasy top 10s is because you've not got epic battles. You've not got dragons. And you know, I love me some dragons. You don't have the same plots that you'd get in a lot of typical fantasy books. But for me, where The Lies of Lamora just steals the show is solely on camaraderie, friendship, heist. It's just such a fun story. Again, looking at this list here, there's some absolute bangers. Fellowship of the Rings, love. Name of the Wind, not read yet. Harry Potter, one of my favourite series of all time. I don't know if I'm biased towards it because of the nostalgia. There's just so many fantasy books here that absolutely slap, and it is difficult to pick a number one. But that's the purpose of this video. We've got to pick a number one. I've already done honourable mentions. I don't think anything is going to take The Lies of Lamora off of my top. So I'm not even going to try and convince myself. Look, this is authentic. That was the first thing that came into my head when we typed this in. It's not even come up in the top 30, which is an absolute crime against humanity. But it's my number one when it comes to fantasy books. So there we go. Lies of Lamora by Scott Lynch. What a class book. Next up, we've got sci-fi books, and that should be an easy one for me because I've not read much sci-fi. I do lean more towards fantasy than I do sci-fi, but the few sci-fi books that I have read, I've loved. So we'll have a nebby on what's in the top 20, see if I've read any of them. Ender's Game, I read and enjoyed. It wasn't one of my favourite books ever. Dune, I need to get to Dune, but I don't know if it's going to be too confusing for me. When it comes to sci-fi, I didn't grow up reading sci-fi. I didn't really watch Star Wars or Star Trek. So when it comes to the sci-fi terms, sometimes it can just get a bit much for me. Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I know that's a lot of people's favourite fantasy book of all time. I read it last month, or this month, was it? No, it was this month. Start of this month, I buddy read it with Macaulay. And it just didn't hit for me. It reminded me that reading is subjective. And to never yuck anyone's yum. I will never yuck anyone's yum, so I expect the same in return. The reason I didn't love that book is it's like a collection of short stories. Shit's kicking off on a Hyperion, and civilization's basically about to get sent to alien Jesus. And you've got these 5 people are going on a mad mission to Hyperion, and you don't really understand why they're going, so they're all telling the stories about why Hyperion is important to them. Story number 1 follows this priest who's got some sort of weird obsession with this alien race, and that engaged me enough to keep going. There's a lot of mystery in chapter number 1. There's a lot of talk of religion, and you just kind of want to know why this dude is interested in this race. But then when you learn about this race, you're just kind of like, who are they? What do they do? Why are they important? And it just encourages you to keep going. I got to the end of chapter 1 and I was just like, meh, it was decent. Let's go to chapter number 2. Then shit just got weird. It was like a shit Ender's Game with a weird VR alien sex orgy obsession. I was just like, what? It was so strange. There were parts of it, like battle scenes and stuff, I was just like, all right, yeah, they're cool. But then, if you've read it, you understand. And if you love it, I understand. The writing's good. I think if you're into sci-fi and aliens and things like that, I think it'll be bang up your street. It just wasn't for me. And again, I'm not saying the book is bad. It's quite clearly a good book. It just wasn't a book that was for me. I DNF'd it. I will probably come back to it at some point because the person I buddy read it with, Macaulay, said that there's a story in there who follows the character Sol, and that is just spectacular. So I'll probably just read Sol's story and then I'll shut it off and just buy Felicia the book forever because it just wasn't for me. The 2 sci-fi books that really stand with me that I did really enjoy were the Red Rising trilogy. I loved them. I'm actually one of the few people that really loved book 1. Oh, Flowers for Algernon. I loved that book, but it wasn't one of my favourite books ever. And the second book, which is probably my favourite sci-fi book ever, was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. And I think one of his books comes in at number 10, The Martian. Project Hail Mary, how do you even explain what it is? A dude wakes up on a spaceship and he's like, what am I doing here? And then he's got to try and figure out why he's there. It turns out he's humanity's only hope to save Earth, and he's been sent on some mad mission to go and stop an impending catastrophe in space. En route, he may or may not come across something that may or may not make into one of the greatest friendships in literary history. It is just spectacular. The use of dialogue in that book is like nothing I've ever read before. The ending, although I know it's hit and miss for a lot of people, was one of my favourite endings in any book I've ever read. Ever. Spectacular. So coming in at number 1 for sci-fi is going to have to be Project Hail Mary. Romance is the next category, and I've had some fun with romance. Yes, I'm 19.5 stone, and yes, I'm bald, but I like a hug and a kiss just as much as the next person. I've had some fun in romance books in the past, and one of the authors that comes to mind when I think romance is Abby Jimenez. I really like Just for the Summer, Yours Truly, and Part of Your World. They're all set in the same world. Really enjoyed them. Emily Henry I've not read. I've not read Elsie Silver, Cowboy Romance. There's 2 books that come to mind when I think romance. One of them was For the Fans by Nyla Kay. That's a male-male romance, and that shook me. It completely surprised me. Not because I didn't expect to love it because it's about 2 men bumming, but just because I didn't expect to relate to it, and I suppose it's because it's about 2 men bumming. So that book is about stepbrothers. I know I've weirded you all out already, but it's just so much more than that. It's basically about 2 stepbrothers who the parents refuse to pay for the college tuition, and parents are like, dude, you're just gonna have to figure this out yourself. You're paying for it yourself. Deal with it. So they're like, all right, what can we do? Let's set up an OnlyFans. And they set up an OnlyFans and they start making content. And it grabbed me from start to finish. The sex scenes, as a heterosexual male, were sexy. And the relationship that they built was beautiful. The trauma they worked through was fantastic. So that is choice number 1. For the Fans by Nyla Kay. Spectacular romance book. If you're homophobic, I wouldn't read it. It's going to make you feel weird. But also, I think if you are homophobic, just fix up, look sharp. Like, love is love. Deal with it. The second book that I truly loved was, what was it called? Binding 13, I think, by Chloe Walsh. Binding 13. That book took me back to school. The nostalgia train, choo-choo, was like nothing else I've ever read. And it's rated 4.45, which tells me I'm right. Look, I sometimes just need a bit of reassurance. My dad left when I was a baby, and I always wonder why. And then when I see something like that, I'm like, I'm not the problem. I'm right. He's the problem. He's the waste man. Daddy loved me. I think if we don't cry about these things, if we don't laugh about them, we cry. And as I said earlier on in the video, laughing burns the same amount of calories as crying, so we should just try and laugh as much as possible. Binding 13, I digress. This book slapped. This follows 2 characters who are the epitome of what you would expect from a romance high school book. It's set in a secondary school in England. So you've got a high school, I think in America they call them jocks. In England we just call them popular lads. He's a rugby player, he's handsome, all the girls want is dick. And then you've got Shannon, so he's called Johnny, and then you've got Shannon, who is misunderstood, bullied, she's got a lot of trauma, and obviously them 2 may or may not want to have a little smooch. But it's about more than that. It's about what it is to be a child. It's about adolescence. It's about school life. And it just felt so real. This was a book that just took me back to 2004. I was born in 1989. So this just took me right back to school. I was ready. There were so many scenes in here where I was just like, I just want to be at dinner hall. I want to order my chips and turkey Twizzlers. I want to go at break time. I want to get my sausage roll. I want to peel the bottom off. I want to get my cookie. It just took me straight back to school. Now, I am guilty of not reading book 2, but that's because I am mental. If you've followed me for long enough, you know I'm mentally unwell, so I don't always make rational decisions. And with this, I think what happened is I was halfway through this book and I was bloody loving it, and I got so many inboxes from people saying, Tyrone, you need to read this, you need to read this, you need to read this, and I'm like, okay, I'll read them. I'm easily influenced, I'm a sheep, just love me. So I did. I went to a different book and I read it, and I forgot to come back to this series. So this series is split up into different sub-series. I think Binding 13 has got a book 2, which follows Johnny and Shannon, and then the third and fourth books follow 2 different characters, and the 4th and 5th books follow 2 other characters. 5th and 6th books. Bloody hell! I think I need that caffeine now. But you get what I'm saying. There's 2 books, maybe another 2 books, and they all follow different characters. It is class. Really is. If you're into romance, or if you're just a human and you want to read a good book, This one's right good. And Goodreads agrees with me. So if you read it and you disagree, it's because you've got poor taste. And as I said, my dad's the problem, not me. We've got 3 more categories left. I know I'm rambling today, but it's because I need it. I'm just in one of them moods. Next category is adventure. Google brought adventure up as its own category. So I was like, look, if Google says it, we're doing it. So let's get on to Google and find out what adventure books are. When I think adventure books, that's not how you spell adventure, but Google will fix it because Google's clever. I think Lord of the Rings. That's the epitome of adventure, isn't it? And adventure to me is just a there and back again mission. And I can't find Goodreads, so should we Google Goodreads as well? Goodreads. So already my number 1 book for an adventure book is probably going to be The Hobbit, because I bloody love The Hobbit. I don't think anything screams adventure like it, but we'll have an Ebby and see what else comes up. Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm not sure that's an adventure. That's one of my favourite books of all time. I suppose in every book someone's going on some sort of adventure, but nah, that's lit RPG, which we don't actually have a lit RPG category. Shall we add it at the end? Yeah, let's do it because we're rebellious. I've already clicked on that. Why did I click off it and back onto it? The Hobbit, yes! It come up. Again, this is all things just reaffirming to me that I am right, and sometimes I need that. I hear the noise. You know, I'm one of them people that if 10 people tell me I'm right and one person tells me I'm wrong, I'm like, but am I wrong? Am I wrong? So it's nice to be proven right sometimes. The Hobbit, that's going to be my number 1. What else have we got here? Treasure Island, never read. Harry Potter, bloody love them, but they're not adventures, they're fantasy. Fellowship of the Rings, yeah, I'm going with The Hobbit. I don't think there is a better there and back again adventure on planet Earth. And I don't think you're going to convince me otherwise. So coming in at number 1 for adventure is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. So next up might be the reason that my dad did leave, and that is because we failed, people. It's taken us, I think, 9 or 10 genres to come to a big fat fail. The only category I have never read is Western. I'm hoping Goodreads proves me wrong here, but I think I'm a failure. I don't think I've ever read a Western book, and why is Goodreads not coming up? Yeah, it's not that I'm not interested in Western books. It's just, there's just that many books out there, and Western books have just never fell onto my lap. So when I look up Western books, Lonesome Dove comes in at number 1, which is sat right on my shelf somewhere. Can't be bothered to prove it to you. You're just going to have to believe me. I'm not trying to fit in. It's on my shelf and I'm going to read it, okay? The Grit, no. There's loads of books here that I've never read. I've also got on my shelf Stephen King's Dark Tower series, and I believe that's got like a Western vibe to it. I haven't read it yet, but I've seen that it's got like one of them big Western hats on it, so I'd imagine there's some Western vibes to that. So I'll read that at some point as well. But I'm not really understanding or recognising even any of these book names. The only book that I have read that might be classed as Western in some people's warped eyes, this is just me clutching on straws trying to prove that my dad was the problem and that I'm not the problem. Gunslinger, that does come up on Western. The Indian in the Cupboard, could that be classed as Western? Read that. That book's very good. Because there's like cowboys and Indians, isn't there? And I know that they say, oh, no, it's not Indians anymore, it's indigenous people. Look, the book is called The Indian in the Cupboard. So I'm just telling you what it's called. I haven't read any Westerns. I'm not going to try and clutch on straws here. But Lonesome Dove is so high on my TBR. I am so character-driven when it comes to books. I've been told that there's so many wicked relationships in that book. Nice bit of romance as well. Some tumbleweed and some horses. And I'm going to read it. But for now, we've failed. We've failed. What a bloody mess of a human I am. We ain't got a favourite Western book because I've never read one. Last up, which is the category that I told you I've made up myself, we are classing Romantasy as its own category because it's really popular and a lot of people read just Romantasy. And if you hate on that, then stop gatekeeping. Look, Romantasy is not my favourite genre. It's not even a genre that I really go to anymore. But I hate hearing people say Romantasy is a gateway to fantasy. No, it's not. Some people read Romantasy because they don't want epic world building and all that jazz. Some people are quite happy to sit within the Romantasy genre and read Romantasy books for the rest of their lives because it gives them everything that they want. So today, we're being inclusive, people. My favourite Romantasy book of all time. I've read all the popular ones. I've read ACOTAR, I've read Fourth Wing, I've read the Pencall one, I've read Quicksilver. I've read Serpent and the Wings of Night as well. That was really good. I think the one that stays with the one that stays with me the most is Fourth Wing, and that's just because of dragons. Yeah, look, you know I'm a sucker for dragons, but it's more than that. For me, Fourth Wing very much felt like Harry Potter. The feeling I got when I read Harry Potter, I'm not comparing the two. Harry Potter, when I compare the two, Harry Potter is miles ahead when it comes to how it impacted my life and the things that it did for me. It's miles ahead of Fourth Wing. But what I mean by that was, it was the first academic setting book that truly got me giddy. Like, it excited me. Some of the trials and things that they did in there it just got me off my seat. If you've read the book, there's a scene where they're doing I can't remember what it's called, like the fetching or something like that. You know, when they go out into the wilderness and they're going out to find their dragon. There's the scene with all the lads, the feral boys, and then Violet Sorrengail's on her own, and then all of a sudden comes down, and I'm like, go on then, go on. And then Andana, yeah, the scenes in that book that truly got me so hyped. And then book 2 happened, and I stopped reading. But that is I'm not taking away from people that read book 2 and book 3 and loved it. For me, book 1 just delivered. Book 2 tried to go more epic fantasy. It went onto a grander scale. It went into looming wars and things like that. And as someone that loves epic fantasy, it just didn't do it as well as other epic fantasy. So I was just like, all right, cool. I really enjoyed book 1. I'm not going to try and read book 2 because I'm only going to be comparing it to epic fantasy, and it's just not as good as some of the other books as I've read. So Fourth Wing, that did some things to me. I also really enjoyed ACOTAR. And again, I think a lot of people struggle to differentiate enjoyed and good. I don't think ACOTAR is the best piece of literature that's ever existed. Book 1 is also almost like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Some of the characters are infuriatingly frustrating. Some of the plot lines in it are very cliche. But there's also parts in ACOTAR that I truly enjoyed. There's a scene in ACOWAR on ice, if you've read it all, the big ice scene. That got me out my seat. There's all sorts of scenes in ACOTAR that truly made me, like, in the moment. It got me in the moment. And I think if an author can do that for a person, they've done a good job. Similar to the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. People that love epic fantasy will often slander people that talk about Sarah J. Maas books as fantasy. The Throne of Glass series is really good. It starts off weak and gets better as the stories progress, but Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas, when I first started reading fantasy, was probably the best fantasy book I'd ever read. Queen of Shadows slaps. I have read better since then, of course I have, but just because I've read better, that doesn't mean that her work is bad. So I think we should stop hating on people just because they don't like the popular fantasy, epic fantasy authors. So anyway, I digress. This is just me just defending literature as a whole. Fourth Wing, that was my favourite Romantasy book of all time. That's it, I think we're done. I am going to stick on a final genre, lit RPG, because we've come across it. Lit RPG, if you've not read it, is a role-playing game within a book, but it's so much more than that. It's a genre that's starting to take off, and all thanks, in my opinion, to Dungeon Crawler Carl. There were people that came before Matt Dinnerman who absolutely were inspirations to Matt Dinnerman, but I think Matt Dinnerman and what he's done with Dungeon Crawler Carl as a series is just absolutely catapulted the lit RPG genre out of the stratosphere. It's making other people come into lit RPG and find other authors like Pirate Abba, who, I think that's how you say the name, who wrote The Wandering Inn. People like, go on, what's it called? I've got it on my shelf somewhere. He Who Fights with Monsters and Shirtaloon. I am currently reading The Good Guys by Eric Summit or other. But my point is that Dungeon Crawler Carl brought me into lit RPG and has brought so many other people into lit RPG in a whole, which hopefully will have a snowball effect and catapult other indie authors into or out of the stratosphere, and hopefully give them the opportunity to make their passion of reading into a full-time career. Who'd have thought that geeky people who love Dungeons and Dragons can start to put this into books and people will resonate with it and they can make their dream a reality? I think that is the beauty of literature. And you know, we are the market, and it's only with people like us picking up these books and reading them that these authors are going to be able to quit the day jobs and write full time. So let's read these books for them. That's it. I'm done. I appreciate you. If you've watched to this point, as always, I love you the most. I will see you in the next one.